2012. And our lecture is sponsored by the Scandinavian Heritage Foundation and the Department of World Languages here at PSU. And tonight, our very own Carl Thompson is going to give a presentation. And usually I introduce the speaker, but tonight I absolutely refuse to, because I found a person who's much better at doing it, and that's his son Erik, who's sitting right there.
Well, I've been asked to keep this kind of short. We've got lots of good stories about Carl and Volvos. Carl, it's hard to describe how Carl fits in as a Volvo expert, you might say. He first started working with Volvos, or first met his first Volvo, I guess, in 1963 in Wiesbaden, Germany. And from that point on, I think that kind of carried on to the rest of his life. He started out working as a mechanic's apprentice for Herzogs here in Portland in '65, and spent over 30 years with Herzogs, doing everything from sweeping the floor as the apprentice to running the shop and training all the technicians. As part of that work, he was recognized as the top top Volvo technician in North America in 1983. It was kind of the first big testing and evaluation of technicians. They actually pulled together the top 50 mechanical field experts in Sweden in '83. He was one of them. From that grew a relationship with some of the engineers in Sweden, and Carl continued being a field engineer, kind of never working for Volvo. They tried hiring him many times, but they kept wanting him to go to silly places like Texas, and Georgia, and California.
Early in California.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he wouldn't do that. Finally, GM actually convinced him to leave the dealership and go work for GM, teaching at PCC in their automotive program for GM technicians. At that point, he had been experienced with GM about 20 years through Herzogs, and also at that point, GM had bought Saab. So Carl had a real good kind of combination knowledge of Saab, Volvo, and even a little Japanese from his experience with Herzogs, which had some benefits here and there. But from that depth of background, I think Carl can give you more history, more insight, more knowledge, and answer any question you can think of about Volvo and Saab. So here's Carl.
You may have exaggerated a little bit there. We'll talk about Swedish cars. Cars only. Volvo is a huge corporation, and the Volvo group does everything from push carts to heavy marine engines. They have a forest product, forest harvester that they use in the paper industry that will go down through their tree farms, will clip off trees up to 8 inches. It clips it, limbs it, chips it, pulls it into a truck as it goes down like a combine to the forest. So they make a whole variety of things. We're going to talk about cars tonight. You know, Swedes like their crawfish, especially in the summer, right? They crawfish fish in August. Well, August of 1924, in Gamlestad, Old Town, Stockholm, these two guys, Gustav Larsson, Lasse Edmundson, happened to run into one another. Larsson is an engineer for SKF Bearing Works, and Gabrielson was head of marketing and sales. So they're sitting down, shucking and jiving, like you see down in New Orleans. They thought, what about a Swedish car for Swedish conditions? And so the tablecloth was sacrificed with their sketching of a Swedish car for Swedish conditions. They went back to SKF, pitched it to SKF, and Gabrielson said, tell you what, I've got 150,000 kroner in my own box. Here, let's get this going. The next year, SKF said, okay, they kicked in 200,000, we can get this going. They had a unused warehouse in Gothenburg. We'll set that up and go there. So there's the first Volvo. SKF invented ball bearing. In 1915, they patented or copyrighted the name Volvo. It's a Latin idiom meaning I roll. For one of their brands of Volvo bearings. It was never marketed under that, but they got started and they changed. So let's use that for our car. I roll, okay. So now we have the first Volvo car. And they nicknamed it Jakob and it stands for Open Vehicle 4-Cylinder. And this little symbol here is not, guys, it's not made. That's the old Swedish symbol for iron. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, April 14th, 1927, the first Volvo almost rolled off of the assembly line. Operative word almost, they had a small assembly problem, it only backed up. Push it back in the shop, do a little work, and then they could drive it out of the shop. Then the next car they built was a closed car. They called this the Ugly Duckling. It's not exactly a really pretty automobile. The cowl here is a little bit short, it's a little humpy. They have a lot of wood in Sweden, so let's use that. So we have wooden spoke wheels. We have this one too. The body is all wood with a leatherette covering. That was more or less standard. They also built it in a truck body. This is one of their first buses with all the nice woodwork inside the bus. In 1929, they had not yet turned a profit. And so they were thinking, gee, a couple of guys from SKF were in the US, and they almost sold it to Nash Cars. Remember the Nash Metropolitans and all those? Probably a good thing, didn't it? Gabrielson says, hey, wait a minute. There's another $220,000 out of my pocket. Let's keep it in Sweden. Okay, we'll keep it in Sweden. So it went from there. Well, they had some complaints about the power and size of the OP4. So now we're going to change our nomenclature. PV, personal car. It's not a VAGN. This is the 6-cylinder car. Much more room, much more power. And Volvo has been in the estate car business, not station. It's an estate car since 1929. You'll never see in anything in the Volvo literature, never says station wagon. It says estate car. It was very common in the 30s in the US, in Europe, for a manufacturer to build the chassis and the running gear and then send it to a custom coach builder to have it dressed. This is a custom built car, cabriolet. Cabriolet means convertible, with our Landau irons here. Built by Normal in Stockholm. It's a gorgeous car. In the 30s, there was a move toward streamlining. Remember looking at some of the Art Deco paint posters, the streamlined engines for trains, looking at aircraft, stuff like that, so we're going into streamlining. So let's get into that too. 1936, COACHWORK, that's Volvo's streamlined car. This was one of the first ones they built. It has an all-steel body, no more wooden canvas. It has independent front suspension, which makes a much nicer ride. And with the all-steel body, we're starting early on about safety. Stands up very well in a crash. Well, curiously, we were thinking about that in the US too. 1935 Chrysler Airflow. Looks kind of similar, doesn't it? 1935 Puckmobile. Well, if you look at it really carefully, you'll realize that a man named Ivan Ellenbrink, who was a Swede, working in the US, Ford Puckmobile, designed a 1935 Hub Streamliner. Gabrielson says, hey, come on back home. So we had the 1936 Volvo Streamliner. It didn't sell very well, just like the Puckmobile didn't sell very well, the Airflow didn't sell very well, but it was a good exercise. We'll try it. Then this little unpleasantness that happened in the continent starting in about 1938, 39, called when they started numbering the wars. And we had the Great War, and we had to start numbering again in 1939. Well, Sweden is not fortunate like Norway is now. They don't have this huge, they had to import their oil and fuel, and it was in short supply. But we have lots of coal, and we have lots of wood. So we built these little, called producer gas. This is for the passenger car, burns wood. This is for the trucks and buses that burns coal. It burns it at high heat, puts off a combustible gas, goes through a set of filters. It's like a natural gas-fired vehicle. We had about 75,000 of these running around Sweden, from 39 to 45. It's better than walking, I guess. So, personal car production stopped, and everything was focused toward war production for Sweden. They didn't sell these to the Hun. They kept them home. Volvo also took over a little group called Svenska, aircraft maker Swedish. And that was changed to Volvo Flugmotor. And they do a variety of things. And Saab makes some really neat, gorgeous jet airplanes, powered by Volvo engines. And if you look at an over 122 Volvo, you look at the steering box, it says Volvo Flugmotor on the steering box. They built the steering gear for them. So about 1944, we could say, it looks like maybe things are winding down in World War II. And we want to be back in the business of selling cars. So let's start with a clean sheet of paper and see what we come up with. This is a prototype of the 444. It has 4 seats, 4-cylinder, 1944, 444. PV again, personal car. This is an all-steel car. Previously, and installed not too long ago, you would build a chassis and then mold a body on it. This is a unibody. That's all welded construction. There's no separate pieces. It makes for a much stronger capsule and also a little lighter.
Was that the first unibody?
Yes, first production unibody. They also put a laminated windscreen in it instead of a glass, which was pretty early, 1940.
To Americans, windshield.
Huh?
It said windscreen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I started my career apprentice with Scotsman. And we did not work on Jaguar, we worked on Jaguar. And they did not have rattles, they had rattles. And so a lot of my terminology is British terminology. And I was teaching at school, in certain parts of the curriculum, I had to hand out my students a glossary of terms. When I say heated backlight, that's the heated rear window for you guys. When I talk about the off side of the car, that's the passenger side of the car. And old dogs, new tricks. Anyway, so this is the 444. They brought a few of those into the U.S. in 1955. Volvo Western brought them in, out of Torrance, California. They sold only in 11 Western states initially. Last summer, we took a little cruise down the Rhine, down the rivers from Budapest up to Amsterdam. We stopped in Cologne for the day. We were walking around town by one of the big cathedrals, and there just happened to be a wedding going on. And this is the wedding limo from 1946 or 47, 44, just in pristine condition. And if you notice, on the, we call that the B pillar. A pillar is the windshield pillar. B pillar is the next one back. There's a little light there. That's turn signals. 1947. Turn signals. I remember the first turn signal that on one of my dad's cars was a 51 Chevy. It was a dealer installed option. Like a little band around the steering column and a little wheel that ran against the steering wheel that would cancel the thing. Some of the cars had semaphore turn signals. And so in the pillar here was a little arm, and we would come out and go blink, 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 blink. And some of us may remember the day when out the window, left turn, right turn, stop, right turn, left turn, stop. I actually saw a guy on a bicycle with these hand signals last week. I thought, whoa, what's going on here? That is really, somebody spent a lot of time restoring that rig. Well, 55, make a push into the U.S. I should back up. The 444 sold in Sweden, what we just saw there, was kind of like the Model T. You could have it in black, or you got it in black, or you got it in black. But we had white come to California. And marketing in those days was still, how do you market cars? You use pretty young ladies, of course. So this is a California special white 440 Volvo. So we have a tube over the bumpers here, a little different grille. That's for the American market. Now the same vehicle, there again with our pretty girl, in Sweden, lower bumper, different grille, same basic car. I said we're in the estate business. And so we needed an estate wagon, delivery wagon, panel job. So this is called a DUETT. This was normally built as a unibody, but they also built these with a partial frame with leaf springs where they could build pickups, panel delivery vans, things like that. And this from the post here on forward was the exact same as a passenger vehicle. And in this particular rig here, that's just like they took the turtle bag and squared it off. An estate car. But with that available with the chassis in the back, gave these a little bit of options. Like how about a convertible? There were a few of these made, not by Volvo, they're made by independent contractors. But it's an interesting little car for the 40s. And all manufacturers are into, you know, concept cars, models and things like that. There's a couple or three that didn't make it. Upper left, the big body they call the Elizabeth I Michelotti in Italy. Kind of resembles the Edsel to a degree. Something got too close to the back of it. And I can see why this guy didn't make it. They say that beauty is only skin deep, but it goes through to the bone, and then gets to the bone ugly. Both of these were in-house designed by Volvo that didn't quite make it. We didn't have a convertible at that time, and Gabe wasn't happened to be in the U.S. and you saw that little white fiberglass car Chevrolet called the Corvette. In GM, in our training centers, we referred to the Corvette as a Tupperware two-seater. And like the auto club I belonged to when we were in Germany in the military, the Germans referred to the Corvette as General Motors plastic truck. So this is the P1900. Gableson's idea of instead of a sports car. He liked the idea of the fiberglass body that GM was using on the Corvette. So Glassbar in California, they make boats. Did the body for the P1900, and they built a special tube frame using 444 running gear and mechanicals for a sports car. So they built 5 prototypes and 67 production cars total. And then they decided to look at it. The fit and finish was not what it should be. This is not up to Volvo standards. We're going to scrap the program. The vast majority of these still survive. I saw one about 3 years ago at an auto show. And they were expensive. 56, this is the car that put Volvo on the map, Amazon. And this particular car here happens to be a Swedish car. They were still driving on the correct side of the road at that point in time. Not the wrong side, the correct side. The 4-door sedan, we call them the P120s. And the Amazon was the normal term for it. They had a bigger engine, a lot more room, had a dash, and every one of these I've ever seen were always two-tone. All had a white top. I've seen them with the red, a dark green, and kind of a blue-gray bottom. I think they only made them in 2 tones. No? No. I've never seen anything but 2 tones of the early 122s.
Yeah, they were mostly one color in Finland.
Okay. Over here, maybe it's for the American market.
Yeah.
Because 2-tone was the thing in the 50s in the U.S. Huh?
The Bel Airs, the Chevys.
Yeah. Chevy built, everybody in 2-tone.
Why was that successful? Why, when you say it put Volvo on the map, why was that successful? What qualities?
It drove very nice, good performance, very comfortable, had good fuel mileage, and Yeah, there's a German magazine called Deutschmark. They call it the Consumer's Report. And they called the Volvo 122, it's a later version of it, they called it the world's fastest tractor. The most popular car is a natural electric car, the Turtleback 544 was fine. If you ever drive one of those things, you can't see where you've been. They're hell to see out of. And they were an economy car. You had a key on the driver's door only. So you open your driver's door, get in, then open the door and your wife can get in the car. You can't be a gentleman and open the door for your wife if you have the car locked. They came with a single-speed wiper motor. And they had a heater fan that had 2 speeds, people and not so people. So there were some problems with that particular rig. But this one was designed with a clean sheet of paper. It has a padded dashboard. It's much stronger. And became one of the best-selling cars in the Volvo fleet up to that time, yeah.
Didn't they come with twin SUs or something?
It depends on the variety of motors. And they were built with a variety of engines based on the application. Even in Europe, fuel was pretty poor quality. They built a single carbureted, low compression, 1.4 liter version. And a lot of the European countries tax a car on the size of the engine. And everybody makes 1.9 liter engines in cars because 2 liters is a big tax jump. In the US, they had the Sport engine. It's a high compression 1.6 liter with twin SU carburetors. What? And the SU is an interesting carburetor. SU stands for Skinner's Union. There's some mule Skinners developed the first carburetor. And they're the simplest carburetor on the market. They're the most misunderstood carburetor on the market. There's a little book a number of years ago, How to Take Care of Your British Car. And it said, SU is an English abbreviation for Leave the Hell Alone. So when they brought these cars in, across the back window was a little decal that says, another quality product of superb Swedish engineering, across the back window. In '58, we went from a 444 to a 544. We went to a one-piece windshield. We went to a much larger back window. They opened up the interior, you can see 5. They still only had 1-speed wipers. They all came with the bumper overrider, new grille, a little nicer car. That was my first car. My first Volvo. Spent a lot of years in it. They came out with in Europe, they had the B14, B for benzene, B for diesel, B for 1.4 liter A, which is a low compression because you had fuel that was just a little bit better than kerosene in some areas. Over here, we had the B16B, which is a high compression twin carbureted sport engine. We also built this in the state car DUETT version, the 445. And then when we went to the newer ones, we called it, we're changing our numbers again, we called it the P210, the same basic thing. But this was also built, stronger car, stronger latches, still looking a little bit, looking at safety, crash survivability, things like that. Niels Woolen was an engineer that worked for Saab. He's the guy that developed the first injection seat for jet fighters. Then he came over, started working for Volvo. He's the brainchild behind the 3-point seat belt. In 1957, they offered these as an accessory to the cars. Starting in August of 1959, they became standard equipment in every Volvo built. So when they came into California, our friends down south, you know, they like to do things their own way. So they mandated that all cars be equipped with seat belts that met a certain Society of Automotive Engineers standard, SAE standard, yada, yada, yada. Except SAE didn't publish standard for 3-point belts. We didn't have them in this country. So we take out the 3-point belts, we bolt in 2-point belts, and we put these back in the accessory shop and sell it back to you as an accessory. In California, up here this had a little bit bigger, nicer interior, better quality seats, better upholstery. And then in '62, we bring in the estate for the 122 series. These were built up through 1969. And it's just taken the four-door sedan, and we squared it off, and made some cargo in it. My son just happens to be the second owner of a 1965 122 estate. It was sold in our dealer I worked for, new in 1965. These came out with disc brakes in the front. They came with 2 engines. In the US, we got a new motor, the 62, the V18. It's a very robust, if you're into engines, it's a 4-cylinder, 5-main bearing engine. You have to get that motor down and beat it with a stick in order to kill it. I've had customers that thought they were driving a maintenance-free automobile, and they didn't bother to change the oil. The car came in and the engine was squeaking, it was so dry. We put oil in it, fired it up, and it still ran just fine. If you could get maybe a $250,000 out of those 200,000 miles, maybe you want to look at maybe doing some refresh on the engine. They lasted forever. In '63, Volvo bought an abandoned fish processing plant in Canada and started bringing in what they call kits. These were knockdown cars and assembling them, reassembling them in Canada. They were getting around some of the Canadian customs laws. If you brought in parts, the duty was much smaller than the full car. So we started building cars in Canada. In '64, we had the 1 millionth 122 roll off the line. Worked pretty good. So they made a big splash with their seat belts. The next big splash for safety and comfort was the Volvo seat. Up to this time, we had seats in cars because you needed somewhere to plant your tush so you could drive it down the street. Quite often they referred to them as chairs. That's about what they were. They put them there because you had something to sit on. All the focus was on the outside, the glitch, and all this kind of stuff. We didn't work too much about the entire interior. But the Volvo again was thinking, a comfortable driver is probably in better control of the car. Well, they got together with the medical folks at Uppsala University, and let's design a seat that fits people, not just something that you put in there to put your butt on. So this seat is considerably deeper than any car seat at that point in time. There's a raised area in the front where you get a little bit of thigh support. It took a wrench, but you could adjust the height of the seat, the tilt of the seat. So if you have a 5'2" person, couldn't see over the... When I was growing up, we had a little lady around town, and she had a big Packard touring car. And she used to kind of peer over the door. She got between the steering wheel and the dashboard. So this is, you can get it up where you want to do. Then the back is contoured and shaped to fit people, not just a straight board. It's adjustable for tilt. This one has a knob. The first couple of years, there's a little hole here. Slide a screwdriver in there, and you could tension some bands across the back of the seat so you could tailor the lumbar portion of that seat to fit you. So you got your tush planted nice and tight in this seat, and you have your 3-point seat belt cinched on nice and tight. You have good control of that vehicle, much better control, safer driver. Volvo and Saab both have been into the safety thing long before it became popular. 55, Ford brought out a new car with a padded dashboard, and they were going to push safety, and it fell on its face. So they went back to metal dashboard and said, hell with it. And didn't worry about safety until the feds started in '68 and mandated it. These guys have been at it from day one. So the P1900 was kind of a bust. So 54, it would be nice to have a flagship car. They ended up in Italy at Fira Body Works. This is the first prototype of the 1800 in Fira in Turin, Italy. They used standard mechanicals, but the COACHWORK It was all custom, all new. We started production in 1961 in England. Volvo they didn't have a room for it in Sweden at that point in time. Press Steel Works in Coventry did all the body panels. Jensen Motor Company assembled the whole car and built it, put Volvo's name on it, and sold it. British cars tend to leak. You know, they leak oil, they leak water. We had water leaks like you wouldn't believe. A couple of the customers come in and tell them they got caught in this downpour coming up closer to a highway. And the wife was sitting up on the seat, squatted in the seat because there was water that deep inside the car leaking that day. And so Volvo said, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. So in 1963, they pulled production back into Sweden and became 1800S. You see we had this big chrome piece that sweeps up to the door and then back across the fender. Of course, we have fins. It was the thing in the 60s, right? Fins, right? They have fins. That's the British car. 800S, this chrome piece came straight back and stopped about here. For you that are of the right age, remember Roger Moore and the Saint? That put this car on the map. That was the Saint's car was at 1800. In 69, here we can see that our chrome piece just runs back straight for a while. We added Bosch fuel injection and a new engine, a bigger engine. These things went like Jack the Bear. And they became the 1800E, E for Einspitze injection. And then in 72, we changed nomenclature again. We had the 1800, so we had the 182, a two-door. The 183, a three-door shooting brake. This is not a hatchback, this is a shooting brake. We're talking English here. It's a one-piece glass tailgate. They built these for 2 years. And with a bunch of safety standards coming in, bumper standards, we couldn't get that car to meet some of the crash standards, so they stopped production. These are still very sought-after cars today, and they bring a tremendous price. In 66, another clean sheet of paper, we had a 140 series car. It's kind of boxy, right? What's the most effective utilization of space? It's a square box. We also refer to these as four-door refrigerators. And we're changing our numbering again. So we have the 142 first series, four-cylinder, two-door. First series, four-door, four-cylinder, five-door. These were focused big time on safety. The front and rear of the car is designed in an accident. It will compress and crumple and absorb the impact so it doesn't get back to you. We have a reinforced roof, reinforced windshield pillars. You can roll over, very, very strong roof. They came with, yes sir?
Just a comment on the safety factor. When I grew up in Norway, I grew up in a place called Raufoss, and the biggest factory in Raufoss was an ammunition factory. Other than ammunition, that factory basically made most of its money by making bumpers for Volvo. So we were, at some point, we were the sole deliverers or producers of aluminum bumpers for the 240 series.
Aluminum is soft, right? This is not soft aluminum. It was some kind of funny alloy. It drilled like tool steel. They were strong.
Didn't they put the spare tire in the back so it became part of the wrinkle zone and buffered a hit?
Part of it. I had a chance to try this out. I bought a brand new car in 1980, and I was really proud of my new car. And we did Northeast Portland then, and I was coming home on a Friday evening, and that ramp by Benson High School that comes down 84 eastbound. I was motoring down 84 at that time, I-80 at that time. And there was an accident happened ahead of me, and they were doing this jackstraw routine. So I was looking for a place to go. This guy had a Ford pickup and a cavalry camper come ripping down that ramp, jumped over the center lane. I happened to be there. And he nailed me in the back end, and it wrinkled the back end of the car up. It pushed the drivetrain forward, it pushed the water pump and fan through the radiator from the back side. I could open both doors and hopped out with my pencil paper. I was not a happy camper. I want your name, your license and your insurance company, that's my brand new car! It's a brand new car. The next week, when Marion was doing laundry, she pulled my jeans out of the dryer. She said, "What did I do to your pants? They just fell apart." Well, that's the pair I was wearing, and the seat back on the 140s was designed to recline in a heavy accident. It had a headrest on, so it takes and spreads the impact across the whole back and shoulders instead of your neck. And I had popped all the seams in the back of my pants, and when I went through the wash machine, they fell apart. These cars had four-wheel disc brakes. They had a very unique dual braking system that I won't get into right now. But these things stopped. And our parts department always had a good supply of rear bumpers, trunks, rear doors, and rear quarter panels. Because you're on the freeway and you nail that brake on that 140, the guy in the Chevy behind you is going to have a prayer. And we did a very brisk business in all rear end panels, rear bumpers, rear lights, stuff like that. Those first few years, people weren't used to cars stopping that fast. And these stopped really fast. This was the only affordable passenger car with four-wheel disc brakes. Jaguar had them, XKE, 3 Mark IIs, Mark IVs, but they cost a little bit more than a 140. These all came with rear window defrosters or defoggers. A first in the industry. You want to see behind you. The early ones, they did it with air ducts. In 1970, we changed to a heated back window, heated backlight. Long before what everybody else did. They had a passenger cage. Like when I got nailed in the back end, it actually wrinkled the front fenders in the car. That part of it moved forward, put a little weight on the front fenders. He was going about 50 when he hit me. I was going probably about 15. It's pretty good. It actually broke the rear axle housing in the car. And part of the problem was there had been a stall, and there was a state trooper there helping the guy with the stall and a single tow truck. He came over to my car first. If somebody's hurt in that car, they got hit and got rolled up. I hopped out angry. Let's see what I got here. A telescoping steering column. So if you get into a heavy impact, steering column under the hood was built like this. It would collapse by that, so it wouldn't end up sticking here.
Flail chest killed a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Flail chest with the steering wheel, breaking all the ribs.
And these were really, in 72, that was the last year of SU carburetors in the U.S. for Volvos. 73, we crossed the board with fuel injection. We started that here in the West Coast earlier. And they went to inertial reel seat belts. We still have our 3-point belts. Prior to that, they put the belt on, just let them adjust it. So I get in the car, it fit me just fine. Marion got in the car, they aren't quite the same size. She had to sweep the seat forward and readjust the belt. So now we have the seat belt reel down here in the pillar, up through that loop, plugged in the floor. So you just pull it out, plug it in, it's nice and comfortable. There's an inertial device in the belt, so an attitude view. Step on the brakes, turn one way or the other, the belt locks, keeps you in place. But you can lean over to get to the radio or whatever, and not be nailed down in the car. To show how strong the roof section was, in 71, in Jacksonville, Florida, we had a hurricane come through. And these cars got a bath up to about here for a whole bunch of cars in the port. Well, if they'd been sitting in salt water, you probably wouldn't want to buy one of those. So they went scrap all of them. So Martin said, let's demonstrate the roof strength of the 140 series Volvo. So this guy has a bracket under here supporting so you weren't flattening the tires. And they've got brackets that balance the cars. So they stacked 6 cars on top of this poor guy. And you can still open the doors. One thing they didn't show on the commercial after they finished the chute, a big cup of wind came along and blew the whole stack over. They wrinkled up pretty bad, so they went around the stack and they opened up all the doors. So these things have a very strong roof panel. In the 80s and 90s, number one son ran a pro rally team with the SCCA, all up and down the West Coast, back in the Midwest. And it said in rally circles that if you don't occasionally put it shiny side down, rubber side up, you aren't driving fast enough. We drove fast enough a number of times. We had to rebuild a couple of these, replace a couple of those. He put one of these on the roof after he had done an end over end and rolled twice. You can maybe see it, but there's a bunch of pipe work in here. There was a full steel roll cage inside the car, but after doing an endo and rolling twice, it didn't crush any of the body structure down onto the roll cage. The cage could have been out of there, could have been okay. So they're very strong.
It was actually kind of hard to get out of the car because the rain gutters had been dragged down over the doors. We had to kick the doors open to get out because the rain gutters were blocking.
We happened to be in Germany on vacation at that time, and we called Eric. And said, well, how do you feel? What's going? He said, I'm kind of sore. I said, well, I totaled the car and rolled it 3 times last night. What? About that time, like, when the 5 marks on the phone ran out, and I had to scurry around and find some new 5 mark pieces to call it again. In '68, they wanted to have a higher line car, 600 engine, so we pushed the front out, they have an inline 6 here. And talking to Volvo at this point in time, there was only one other manufacturer in the world, Daimler-Benz. Nobody else counted. That was the only manufacturer in the world. And all Benzes had inline 600 engines. Jaguar had inline 600 engines. BMW had 600 engines. All the Highline cars, inline 600s. So you have an inline 600. They went with a very luxurious, nice, gorgeous leather interior, upscale carpets, a lot of trim. Very nice car. 72 with fuel injection, became quite a hot rod. They looked like Jack Bear. In '74, there were a lot of changes coming for safety. This is a European spec vehicle. We have our windshield headlight wipers in Washington. The programs used in Sweden still today require some manner of headlight cleaning on all vehicles. So you see Chevy Malibu running around, it's got a little windshield squirter in the bumper squirting the headlights. You don't see them over here, but you do in Europe. They changed the door frame, took the vent window out, and went to a solid steel frame, much stronger door. We put heavy side steel bars for side incursion in the doors. A better designed collapsible steering column. They relocated the fuel tank to the front of the trunk up over the rear axle. So in a rear collision, it's not a good idea to have that fuel tank rupture and become fuel all over the ground. And then they did one other thing that was the first. How many times have you driven down the road and the guy ahead of you or the guy behind you has their brake light out, a tail light out, or a headlight out? And they're supposed to be backing down the road with half the lights out in the car. We put a bulb failure system into the car. It monitors headlights, tail lights, and brake lights. If one of those goes out, this little light appears on the dashboard. It's got a light bulb in it with a big X to it. You got a light bulb out. Market first. And this has a second version of the heavy 5-mile-an-hour bumpers. There's shocks back in here that will compress. You can run that into a wall at 5 miles an hour. All you're going to do is just scuff up the rubber. You let it set, the bumper reinflates, you're back in business. These guys are held to drill too, very, very hard. And they don't bend.
I know, I made them.
And for a piece of aluminum, they were not very light.
No, they weren't.
There was some real beef in that. In '72, this car appeared, had been worked on for a number of years, Volvo experimental safety car. Let's build a car from scratch with the entire focus of that vehicle being on vehicle safety. There was a move and some questions coming in worldwide about automotive safety. Maybe we can figure out some way that we won't kill quite so many folks. You know, we're not killing them in the war now, so let's stop killing them on the highway. So the safety car came out. It has a double layered roll bar in the roof. It has a double layered passenger cage around the car. It has a very heavy side intrusive impact bars. We have bumpers that are quite a bit longer, quite a bit heavier. These are more than 15-mile-an-hour bumpers. They moved the fuel tank even further forward than they did. This showed up in '74. This car was originally built in the early '70s, late '60s, early '70s. Was first shown at the press in '72. We have ABS brakes. Nobody had ABS brakes. I'll take that back. The Ferguson formula of Jensen had bendage in their ABS brakes that they adapted from an aircraft. The passenger car didn't have ABS brakes on at that point in time. It has, God forbid, passive automatic seat belts. They're attached to the door, so you had to open the door and slide under, because you know some ladies don't put their belts on. So we're going to make it so you have to put the belt on. They tried that in 1974 with the seatbelt interlock. You had to look up the belt before you start the car. That went over really well. Once the system didn't work all that well. If the little switch broke, you couldn't get a pull to it. Well, halfway through the year, there was so much hate and discontent and death threats to all the people back in Washington, D.C. that they put that system on the car, thank God. It also has pop-up headrests. In the event of an accident, your headrest will pop up to support your head.
There was kind of a situation where some of the cars coming from Europe arrived after they made that decision, and then they had to be jury-rigged so the system didn't work, and it later resulted in failures.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about.
So the federales, our federals, decided to get into the Act 2, and so they came up with the experimental safety vehicle. They put out a series of 82 standards for the safety vehicle. Well, Volvo hadn't seen that standard when they built the car, and they met 70 of the 82 without them making any changes to the vehicle. Their standard for that was 50-mile-an-hour crash front and rear. That's exceeded standards. The rollover standard was 4 times what the federal spec was. And they would call a force-steered engine. This came out in the 140s. So in severe frontal impact, breakaway motor mounts, the engine drops down, out on the ground, not back in your lap. And airbags in 1972, and the pop-up headrests and analog brakes. Those took a while to reach the rest of the world. So 75, we're changing it again. Now we're in the 240 series. Second design, 2-door 242, 4-door 245, 245 wagon, 244 sedan. Complete new engine in 76. They had it in 75 in Europe. They waited 1 year to bring it over here. In 77, we brought in a new engine called a feedback lambda sign. You may have some early Volvos that had the little Greek letter lambda on the grill and the word son. The Greek letter lambda indicates the stoichiometric, which is the ideal fuel-to-air ratio. You get 14 pounds of air, 14.7 pounds of air, and 1 pound of fuel. You will completely burn up that fuel and have almost 0 emissions. So with this system, part of it came from, we were trying to develop a fuel gauge for liquid oxygen tanks for the space rockets. This system worked really great, but the oxygen sensor has to work, it gives 600 degrees Fahrenheit to work. It doesn't work with liquid oxygen, but it worked with this. It turned out to be a very, very clean car. I was working part-time with Sun Electric at that time, and they had just brought out their new 2001 engine computer. Remember the movie 2001? So they had their big monstrous thing. computer operated maintenance diagnostic system. So I stopped at the road one night when they were showing this, and they pulled it in, and they put the probe up the tailpipe to measure the emissions. And something was wrong with their machine because the car couldn't be that clean. Well, you could put a lip lock on the tailpipe of that car, and it wouldn't kill you. You could not commit suicide in that car. You could die from starvation, but you couldn't do it with CO. In '80, Volvo came out with heated front seats. And that was a GL trim level. It was the same trim level for the cars, leather, upscale carpets, much nicer, and heated seats. And you haven't lived until you hopped in a leather seat at 20 below. You appreciate a heated seat. 81, right in a turbo. Little GT here. Turbocharger is an exhaust-driven supercharger. So we're forcing more air into the engine. When you're motoring down the road, it doesn't take all that much power to keep the car going. So we just had a 2.1 liter motor in it. When you put your foot into it, the turbo spools up and you're pressurizing the intake, you're forcing air into the engine. It thinks it's a 3 liter, much more horsepower. You back out of it, turbo spools down, and you back better fuel mileage. Ford's made a big push on their engines for 2011 and 12, dropping V8s when the turbocharged V6s. And then in '86, the move, of course, up to the square boxy cars worldwide was starting to go away, and so we softened the body line to make it a little bit softer car. Wasn't quite so square. And then we had the 164 for the first series. We have a 264 here, a V6. It was a Peugeot Renault Volvo co-op engine, and the French motor. I won't go into that. I don't think the French should be allowed to make things out of metal. But this is a very nice car, gorgeous interior, heated seats, leather, very nice car. We no longer have our sports car, so now we have a two-door coupe made by Bertone in Italy. I couldn't drive the car, it was too squat. That gorgeous hand-stitched leather interior, World walnut dash and trim on the doors, really nice car. Then we did another clean sheet of paper again, start all over again. We had the 700 series. Much more angular car, much larger car, a lot more amenities. This car was designed from the get-go with further enhanced safety. Better crumple zones, better impact safety on the side, better row structure, much nicer car, much bigger car.
High steel.
Yes, a lot of it high-strength steel. Body shops didn't like it sometimes because it was hard to work with. The steel was very, very hard. And then we did a two-door that at Bertone again, did a 780. There again, a gorgeous car inside, gorgeous hand tool, stitched leather. The aroma inside that car was wonderful, with the leather interiors. So Volvo's not only thinking about the safety of you guys motoring down the road, what about our employees? So this guy is working on the underside of the car. He's standing on a wooden floor. The assembly halls are all wooden floors. Easier on your feet. And so most of the undercar work is done at this level, not like this. In this rig, about 8 to 10 minutes of the total production of that car is actually done from the underside. And then the car is raised above the production floor. You're not in the pit.
Wasn't it about this time they started building cars with teams too?
Yes. This is right here, the working team. I've got there. The working team. And so the two of us think that the absolute worst thing in the world is putting in dashboards. We get that once every 6 weeks. And they rotate around the car, working in two-man teams assembling the car. And the team is paid on the quality of output of the team. They go through quality check, if there's a problem, go back for a redo, it comes out of their pocket. I mean, for a high-quality car, it cut their worker comp injury rate with into the toilet. Because you're not working over your head anymore. You're working here. And you're easier on your feet. See, this guy's wearing clogs. He's wooden clogs on the wooden floor. It's actually easier on your feet. In the back. In the back. 900 series, like the 240, we went to a more softened line, a little bit smoother car. This has a new inline 6-cylinder light alloy engine. We don't use the word aluminum engine because it's kind of bad. GM built some aluminum engines back in the 60s that were disasters, so we never use the word aluminum. It's a light alloy. Very upscale interior. Very nice riding vehicle. Yeah.
You should mention what happened to those motors, where they went.
Yeah, they went to Rover. Actually, a version of that engine, you know, my wife's pointing on you, feeling too long, I've got the side. Anyway, they built a limo. In '91, they came up with a side impact protection system. We've had the bars in the door, but this was an integrated system that spread the impact over the whole body structure, into the roof, into the cowl, into the floor. So a much better system. These seats they call catcher-smith seats. When you get rear-ended, the seat would tend to set you back. As part of the SIP system, across the front of the calf of the seat, there was a tube that was part of the transmit part of that side impact across the car to the other side of the car to spread it out. On a rear impact, you would tend to go down and catch your side so you wouldn't slide up among the seat. And you sit back in the seat, and the seat would get out, spread the pressure out across your back. We built this with a limo version we didn't have in this country. 93 was hello, front wheel drive, goodbye 240. We built about 2.8 million in the 240. Now we changed them in the 850s. It's an all brand new car. There again, another focus on safety. This has an inline 5-cylinder sitting crossways. And we asked, why 5? Well, it's bigger than 4 and 5. Smaller than 6. Okay. If you get a 5-cylinder engine sitting in there, we got it far enough forward, we had our crumple zone and crush zone before it got back into the cowl of the car. In '94, in '94, another wrinkle. We have our side impact protection systems. What about airbags in the side of the car? Airbags in the side of the seat. So, side impact, the bag inflates, or inflates, protects the torso and rib cage of the car of the driver. We got to be there in '95, picking the car up. We're having lunch with some of our engineering guys. And the one guy was just really pumped because they had a car that got broadsided that day, and he'd been there and saw how the side bags worked. This is the first time they actually had one of them do it in the real world. He was so great that he got to see it. Volvo has engineers all over Sweden. You call 911 over there. They call fire, police, medical, and Volvo engineering. And they respond to the accident. And so we get in there and say, okay, Priscilla, I don't care what you told the police, or what you told the insurance company, what really happened. I want to know, and I never get called into court. They want to find out how the car stood up. They also built a brand new paint shop in '93 for these cars. It's the cleanest paint shop in the world. The air coming out of that system is cleaner than the air they pulled into for the ventilation. I went through all the scrubbers. In '99, two things happened. One of them, GM bought, or Ford bought into Volvo, and they bought a new car, the S80. This is a much larger car, wider. It's a 6-cylinder engine sitting crosswise. It's a GM transmission, 1460E transmission. At that point in time, that's the only front drive gearbox that would handle the horsepower and torque of the 666. We have Ford Motor Company guaranteeing the GM transmission.
Did Ford buy all of Volvo or just part of that?
All of it. Volvo car. They didn't buy the rest of the car, the rest of it. This has, the SIP system has a whiplash protection system, active headrests, front and rear, side curtain bags. A state car came out in 2001 based on it. In later years, we went to a variety of 5-cylinder turbos. We had V8s. And then we have an adaptive brake light system on Gen 2 to come out in 2007. So you're in a panic stop mode to warn the guy behind you that you're trying to shut this thing down. It flashes the brake lights 4 times a second to get his attention. When he gets to 19 miles an hour, the brake lights stay on full before the hazard reflectors come on to warn the guy behind you. They have a little camera that sits out here behind the mirror and a little radar piece out here in front of the grill. And if you're starting to drift and get out of your lane, it's watching the lane markers. And it decides that, hey, you know, this guy is maybe needs a break. It goes ding, 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 and says, hey, it's time for coffee. It shows up on the dashboard, rings a little alarm, says, driver alert, time for a break. It also has a pedestrian avoidance system in it.
Okay.
So you're in inner-city traffic up to about 19 miles an hour. If it sees what it considers to be a pedestrian walking in front of the car and you haven't hit the brakes, it will. Or if you're rapidly approaching a car in traffic and you haven't hit the brakes, it will. If you're at higher speeds, it'll bring that car down about 20 miles an hour. So instead of rearing the guy at 50, you're rearing the guy at 30. This was first shown at the Detroit Auto Show in 02, XC90 SUV, based on the S80 platform, North American Car of the Year in 2003. They came with either V8s. We have a new 3.2 engine in it now. It has all the same things, whips, sits, all this. It also has a rollover protection. It has a variety of sensors in there. If it senses the car is about to go on its lid, it activates the seatbelt tensioners, pulls you back in the seat, and deploys the side curtain airbags, so you won't rattle around inside the car. You may bend it up pretty good, but you won't. And in 2000, we have the S80, or S60, a little smaller version of the car. Typically, Volvo has not been known for gorgeous automobiles. This is a pretty car. The Time magazine said this is the prettiest car in the world in 2000 at that point in time. All of them have 5 cylinders. They built this as a hot rod. This one actually is a S60R, all-wheel drive on Haldex, and has computer-controlled suspension. It's a real hot rod, pretty nice little car. We have a complete new vehicle in 2011, the new S60. It's a really pretty car. And there's a little, you can't see, a little sensor sitting right there. You can see a couple of sensors up here for the lane departure and pedestrian. And it has the crash protection. It has all of the fuzzy electronics. Each has about as much computing power as an F-15 fighter has. The S80, one we had 16 on-board computers in the car.
How many?
16. We have the smaller SUV version of it. And this has the accident avoidance. So we want to show that to the press. This is the accident avoidance program. Didn't turn it on. We have the world motoring press here looking at this.
Carl, I was going to ask you if the wipers automatically do that to get the debris off the windshield.
I'm running pretty long here, too long. Saab aircraft was founded in 1937 to supply aircraft for the Swedish Air Force. And GM bought into them in 1989, bought half, and they bought the rest of the car portion in 2000. So Saab said the same thing. It's 1943, 44, it looks like World War II is winding down, maybe there's going to be a limited market for fighter aircraft. Let's look at building a car. Okay? So Gunnar Ljungström was given the task of, you go up the line and build a car for Saab. There's 15 guys to help you. Of that group, 2 of them had driver's licenses. They had never built a car before. They didn't know what to do with it. Well, they decided on a 2-cycle engine, 2-cylinder, 2-cycle, much like a chainsaw motor. Prior to World War II, the German DKW the two-stroker, was very popular. It has some good features. It starts very well in cold weather, because of the drag on it. And they built this with a safety cape, because that's what we're building airplanes, right? We're any better. We're airplane technicians, not cars. So they came up with their prototype. And then in Saab 92. The Saab 91 was a commercial aircraft for short-haul flying. It was the 92nd design, 92nd design within the Saab organization. That's why it's a Saab 92. And they had a very low drag and a wind tunnel. It had a drag coefficient of 0.32, which is not bad for today's cars. And much like the Volvo and the 444, you have a choice of green, or you can have green. Then we get into a little redesign in 93. They put a little bigger windows in the car, went to a 3-cylinder engine. And in order to promote the car, let's go trail rallying with it, performance rallying. And they ran it all over Europe. Eric Carlson was one of the better known drivers. That's where Eric's name came from. These came with seat belts, lap belts, standard in 58. In 60, another design, much bigger windows. Yes?
I think everybody should know that Eric Carlson had a nickname, Erik Potaket Carlson. Potaket means on the roof.
Yep. Next picture costs like that. Right.
Not there yet.
He tipped over so many of these Saabs.
He didn't follow the dictation, the rubber side down, shiny side up. This is a two-stroker. Two cycles tend to be not very efficient and clean. So to meet emission laws, we had to get a new motor. So they settled on a little V4 from Ford of Germany in the Thomas. Curiously enough, that engine came from Detroit, Dearborn. Back in the 60s, Ford said, we need a small car to compete with the Corvair. And then they decided, well, don't worry about that. We're going to call it the Cardinal. So all the R&D and road tests, they stuck that engine and transmission assembly in a Saab 96 to drive on the road to do the testing. They shipped them all off to Ford of Germany in Cologne. Saab bought the 4-banger V6 or V4, put it back in the 96, brought it back in where it started in the Saab 96. This had double brake circuits. This was the first car to come out with the headlights went on and off with the ignition key. Daylight running lights, 1969. And they put the key on the floor between the seats where it belongs. Because they had a number of accidents where people had damage in their knees hitting the key, so they put the key on the floor. Concurrent with that, a lot of the European countries were mandated some type of theft prevention. Most people went to locking steering columns. Well, that can be expensive. So Saab, not knowing any better, because we don't make cars, they make airplanes. We only build stick-shift cars. Let's put the key down here, put some linkage onto the transmission. We put the car in reverse, not even pull the key out. They can still steal the car, but it might ask a question, why are you backing the car down the street? In 72, quite early, they put side impact bars in the door in 72. The Eric Carlson on the top, in one of the East African safari rallies in Kenya, it's normally dusty and dirty. One year it was very wet and muddy. And Ericsson's about the size of me, and his Kodar is about the size of me, small people. And they got stuck in a big mud bog. And so they got out, they turned the car over on its roof, grabbed the bumper, drug it out of the mud, on the firm ground, back on his feet, and on down the road.
They were the only ones stuck in that mud bog.
Yeah. And they're back at the hotel in Nairobi, and some of the press said, yeah, right. Okay, so they went out to the Park Rene, hopped in the car, onto the lawn in front of the hotel, got out, turned it over, dragged it across the lawn, back on its feet, back in the park. They won the Monte Carlo Rally outright in, let me see here, 62 and 63, I think it was.
Yeah, then he had 64.
They're in the REC, the British Rally, 61, 60, 61, 62, the Monte Carlo in 62 and 63. And they're running against, Porsches and Ferraris and very long, high-powered cars.
Why was that a successful rally car? Was it more factory support or a better driver team or something about the car?
It's been said that the Scandinavian drivers tend to make very good rally drivers, especially the Finns. And it's said that the Finnish rally drivers, if you look at a corner, and 10/10 is the exact maximum speed you can take that corner at is 10/10. It is said that the Finnish drivers and the Swedish drivers start at 11/10. If they live to it, they work down to 10/10. I think only one time in non-Swedish or non-Scandinavians won the Dog 1,000 Lakes since last year.
I think.
Yeah, it was not last year, but,
That's a couple of years.
yeah, the French guys won it once.
Only one or two times have the rallies in Sweden and Finland that was Scandinavian not run. If you look, especially in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and look at the entry list, it's Stig Blomqvist, it's a nice Irish name. Arne Vatanen, Hugh Konkanen, Anna Mikkola, all Swedes, Finns, Petter Solberg, Norwegians, driving the cars. They may be driving Fords, they may be driving V-Dubs, they may be driving Lancia Italias, and Toyotas, but the drivers, the names are all across. You always see lots of umlauts on all the names. They were still they wanted to get into the sports car a bit too. The Sonnet 1, they made 2 or 3 of them and it didn't work, so they stopped that program. But the Sonnet 2, it's a fiberglass car. It was originally built as a race car. And they kind of made it somewhat civilized and tried to sell it. It was an awful thing to work on. I can attest to that. And it worked reasonably well. And they came up with the Sonnet 2, which is this was designed as a customer car. But when you got into some of the bumpers, these bumpers kind of destroyed the lines, and so they finally they bagged it and said, heck of it. This was the first Saab car that was designed more the idea of being an automobile, the Saab 99. Much larger cars, all of them were hatchbacks, 2-door, 4-door, all hatchbacks. Originally the engine came from Triumph in England, and it had all the typical things that British engines have. And so in '69, Saab brought it back into Sweden, rebuilt the engine, and fixed most of the problems. This also had headlights on off of the ignition switch. They put a 1978, they went to turbos very early for performance. And they have been into turbos since then, and they write the book on turbocharged engines. Yeah, they put the engine in back, which is kind of strange. And heated side seats, and they had a new thing, a split vision rear view mirrors on the outside, so you get a better field of view. You've all seen this thing on the mirror that says, warning, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Yeah, they started that in 1985 with Saab. So they're on a long time with them. And they wanted a little bit more sophisticated looking car, what they call the Classic 900. We call it the Classic 900. This is the last Saab before GM got their fingers into it. 1979, they put a passenger compartment polymer air filter in the climate control system. The first car to do that. Everybody's followed suit now. They started in '79. In '83 at the Frankfurt show, they showed a convertible. And they hit the road in '86. This is based on the 2-door Classic 900. But the convertible is built by Valmet in Finland. Built in Summel over there. One of the reasons GM bought into Saab was that they were maxed out for production room in Germany. Saab had extra space. It's cheaper to buy Saab than build new production factories. Plus, Valmet was going to be building the Opel convertibles, so they wanted that connection with Valmet and Saab in building their convertibles. In '94, we had the new generation, 900R, later called the 9-3. This is based on the Opel Vectra. It's got Saab engine and transmission, Saab electronics, but Saab did a lot of the design work on the suspension and the body structure for the Opel Vectra Oxel Astra platform. They have active head restraints, so when you get into an accident, the head restraints on the rear, they will tip forward and catch your hip on the way back, so you won't be going back so far. And they built this thing in a two-door, four-door hatchbacks and convertibles. That's our convertible. I have convertibles. And they built the VAGN. This was their hot rod. It came in two doors only. You had a choice of electric blue, or electric blue. It had a very large turbo on it. It went like Jack the Bear. It goes 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 62 miles an hour, in a little over 6 seconds. They limited the speed to 155 miles an hour. And they named it after the Saab 37 fighter that he used. It's a pretty plane. And their next, they had a 9000, they needed a bigger car. Developing a car platform is incredibly expensive. This is co-opted with Fiat Lancia and Alfa in Italy. And they built cars that look very, very similar, only the Saab car was appreciably heavier than the Italian cars because of all the safety features incorporated into it. Then they built the aero version of this. It had a 225 horsepower turbo, but it was faster from 50 to 75 than Ferrari Testarossa. Only one big downside. This had the ignition key in the dashboard. The Saab folks did not like that. But the new generation Saab that came out with Opel in the floor. 2003, another new car again. This is the GM Ypsilon platform, world platform. So you're looking at a Saab 9.3, you're looking at a Chevy Malibu, looking at a G6 Pontiac, a Astra, Saturn Aura, Opel Astra, Vauxhall, all built on the same platform. There again, Saab did the design work on the suspension and the steering, the handling, and the body structure on this car. And the convertible, then they came out with this is not a wagon, this is a sport combi. That's my car. And I got out of I drove Volvos for a long time, but when they made a change in their body structure in 2007, I can't drive it, not enough headroom. My wife decided to retire. Well, let's get us a convertible for a retirement car. I'm looking at Volvo's new convertible, can't drive it. So she drives a Saab convertible, 9.3. These are made by Steyr in Austria. And another new big car, the 9.7 or 9.5, very nice car, same size as the Volvo S80, gorgeous seats. It has much stronger front and rear crumple zones, slide impact. The Traffic Safety Institute, or the Insurance Institute, in testing this car, gave it the highest rating they'd ever given at that point in time. Even though it didn't have side airbags and curtains, it still surpassed cars that did. They built that in the economy version also. And then last year, they came out with the new 9.5. This is a really zowie car. It's full of the latest whizzy electronics. As we all know, Saab is down the drain. So they built a few of them, and it has a very uncertain future. But once people are sitting around talking to some of the motor journalists at an auto show, and one guy says, "Why are you Swedes so driven with car safety? And that's all we hear from you guys is car safety." He said, one word, moose. Moose. Yeah, moose. So in Sweden, we have a moose test for cars. And one part of it is we set up this little slalom course, and they go at it at higher and higher and higher speeds. You're dodging the moose here. They also have a dummy that is the size, shape, weight, density of a full-grown moose that they use as part of their crash test. It's not quite as bloody. You use dummies that are real moose. And not all vehicles make it through the moose test. So we've talked all night here about very practical, utilitarian vehicle, just like. And I haven't said much about passion in cars, right? Like Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini. Those cars are, you know, Bugatti. It gets the juices flowing. Well, how about that for a Swedish car? And then if you like it in a restaurant red, we got it that way too. Another version of it. This is the R version. This is the popped up version. And then we have a. It only has 806 horsepower with V8. And they figure the top speed is somewhere around 240 miles an hour, and you can go 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. You can get there in a big hurry. For the small sum of $600,000, you too can have this car parked in your garage and drive a sexy Swedish car. Sexy Swedish and models, blondes and blue eyes, yeah, but somehow sexy Swedish cars didn't equate until Koenigsegg came along.
It's a statement to the moose thing you were talking about. It's a real problem in Scandinavia because there are a lot of moose. And I read a report in a Norwegian newspaper just a few weeks ago stating that there are about 7,000 incidents of moose being hit by cars or moose hitting cars in Norway alone per year at the average cost of $30,000. So it is a significant problem.